Use your 3 master washes to create a painting.
Up in a painted cup, I will pour my love from a cloud above. So bright I can see the lights taking you up and above the blue sky.
Welcome! I'm Elisa, mom of 3 and fine art watercolorist. If you're new to this channel and you would like to learn how to paint fine art watercolors, start now by subscribing and clicking on the bell so you don't miss out on anything. When learning watercolors and its techniques, it can be hard to know where and when to apply them. So today I'm going to create a painting with you using our flat, variegated, and gradated washes. Feel free to pause this video when needed. Let's get started on our painting. For this lesson, you will need the following items: a pail of water, your paints, a pencil, a board and paper, your ruler, spray bottle, masking tape, and a testing paper. When you're starting to paint a picture, the first thing you're going to want to do is mark the edges of your paper so it will be sure to fit inside whatever frame you are looking for. In this case, we want it to fit inside a 5x7. So we have our ruler and our pencil, and we want to make sure that our markings, that our paper is bigger than a 5x7, but that we mark it 7 inches and 5 inches.
Tastes good to be drinking all of the honey sweet brew of ours. Up in a painted cup, right in the sky like a firefly. Like a firefly.
I'm sure it's the same on each side. Then you're going to measure.
To believe is to feel the fire grow within. I believe.
And after you've made your markings, double check to make sure that you do have, in fact, the 5 inches and 7 inches. Yes, I do. So then we are done with our ruler. The next step, we want to make sure we tape our paper down so we are not getting bowed and rippled, which can affect our painting. If you have a bump in your painting or a dip, then the paint will go up in the valleys and the hills of those, and it won't be what you want. Now the spray bottle is, like we talked about in our last video, is for spraying our paints to reactivate them for painting. Okay, so we have our paper taped down. Now we are going to sketch out our drawing. We want to be careful because we don't want to erase too much on our paper, as it will damage it because it is 100% cotton. So you can either transfer your drawing or make sure you're drawing very lightly. The more simplistic, the better. Draw a straight line here. I will leave a link in the description below for this specific sketch. So if you don't want to try and draw it on your own, you can go to my website and you will be able to find this sketch and just be able to use that. Now it is only for learning purposes. This is my own sketch, but you are welcome to use it for this practice. So we're going to do a harbor scene here. Just kind of making up the piers that I want. These are going to be little people. They're just going to be dots. And that's okay. You're not going to see them from that far anyway. And then we'll add birds and things later. We don't want to do too much on our paper because we don't want to muddy it with too much going on. So here's our sketch. Now we are going to mix up our paint and then start painting. The other thing you will need to use are your 4 brushes that we talked about in our materials video. We'll link in the card above. So you need your flat, your round, which this one is a size 12. Here we have a round size 4, and we have our rigger brush. Starting with our variegated wash, we're going to put in our sky. So we'll go into our cobalt blue, load our brush. Remember to start at the top and go across horizontally. Make sure you have enough of a puddle that you can have a bead at the bottom. Hurry and go into those before it dries. Go back into your wash. Go across again. Now we're going to go into our water. Go across. I missed some spots, so hurry. And then our last, we're going to rinse our brush. Our last stroke, we're actually going to go into our yellow ochre. So it has that kind of fog or hazy feel to it. I want it to be a little bit more yellow. It's okay if you go over those mountains and our harbor here, because we will be going over those with a darker color, so that yellow will not show up in that. Then make sure you wipe up any paint along the edges here. You don't want to accidentally have anything go into your painting. Okay, so we have this nice bluish yellow color going across, which is what we want. And then we want to wait until it's dry before we start our second wash, because we don't want it to blend into each other right here at this horizon line. We want those distinct differences. It's best to let it air dry, but if you want to speed the drying process, you can always use a hair dryer. Using a hair dryer is not always the best idea depending on what you're wanting to paint, because it can prohibit the movement of your paint. So you want to be careful when you decide to use your hair dryer. If you're wanting your paint to blend and mix together and just create its own little entity, then I would suggest not using your hair dryer. Okay, now we are going to turn our painting upside down for this next wash. Now I turn it upside down because just the same as how we had this wash, we wanted it to slowly go down the paper. We want our wash, we're starting from dark to light, so we want our paint to run down our paper. And where it's at a 20-degree angle, because the ocean that is closest to us will appear darker than the ocean that is farther away from us. For this one, I'm going to use my round 12 brush because it is such a small area and I don't want to cover too much too quickly. For this one, we will go into ultramarine blue. It is a nice deep blue for the ocean. And we're going to use our gradated wash for this. So our first wash was variegated. Now we're going to use our gradated wash. Nice deep color to begin with. Load our brush and go horizontally across our page. Pick up more paint, touch that bead, and go across our page. Now we're going to head into our water. Go across. I'm going to sop up some of this excess here quickly. Because I feel like I don't want all of that in there. So I'm going to quickly go back in, go over my last spot, pull all that paint away. We have a nice gradated wash. Now some parts here are a little bit more white than some of the others. That is okay. It can be just the way the light's hitting the water. If you don't like it, quickly run your brush over before your paint and your water dry too much. We need to let our paint dry again before we start on our flat wash so that it does not bleed into our ocean. We are going to flip our painting the right way as we are now ready to do our flat wash of our mountains and our harbor. I'm going to use my round 4 or size 6 brush. Go into some clean water. I'm going to use a Payne's Gray. Like this nice black color, but I don't want it black. So I will add a touch, and I mean just a small touch of red, which will add a little bit of life to that Payne's Gray. And I still don't like that, so I'm gonna add a touch more blue. And you can just add a little bit of your blue or your red to your Payne's Gray till it's the color you like it. I will move a little bit over here and dilute it. So I'm gonna add a little water to it. I want this one lighter because this first mountain over here is farther in the distance, so it's going to appear lighter. Now I'm going to move to my rigger brush because this is very small for this background one. Just subtly load your brush, follow that mountain range, making sure to keep a nice bead. It's okay if you run into this other mountain. Like I said, we are going to cover it with a darker pigment. You can even move on a little here as if there's little tiny mountains there. Okay, so we have our first mountain with our first flat wash. It might seem a little different because this is on a smaller scale than when we did our first flat wash, which was the whole page. But this is a flat wash. Anytime you want it to be completely solid, one color, that is our flat wash. For our next mountain, now we want to be careful because this is still wet. So if I touch this, it's actually going to bleed into that second mountain. And I don't want to use the hairdryer on this. It's such a small piece. So I'm going to move over here to our harbor. I kind of have a tendency to tilt my paintings when I'm doing details. So forgive me if it's not straight on. We're gonna go across this first line. Kind of do some practice lines. You want to make sure it's straight. See there, we have that. It's fairly straight. It's okay if you do miss a few spots because this is in the distance, so it'll look like the sun is shining on it. We have a second one, which we do want smaller and more sporadic. Okay, like that. Our mountain is drying. It's not quite dry yet, so we will go back here and to the top of this building that's on the end of our harbor. I don't want to fill in all of it because there could be some windows. I don't know. Here we've got our posts at the bottom. Okay. For every post you have on this side, you got to remember there's going to be a post that's a little smaller on the opposite side of that pier. Sometimes, to make the lines look slightly different, you will go slower for one line. You can see how that's a little thicker, and then very quick for your other line, and it'll be a lot lighter, thinner. Just create some lines. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is a pier, it is far away. Now while we have that drying, I believe our mountain over here is dry enough and we can move on to this mountain here. Make sure you get a lot of pigment on your brush. If you want to go to a little bit bigger size, you can. Just touch along those pencil lines. It doesn't have to be perfectly like what you drew. Just let it be what it's gonna be. They're mountains. They don't need to be perfect. So we're gonna go back over this before it dries. Keep going back into your paint. Okay, there we have a nice flat wash. I want to make this mountain a little taller. We are done with this mountain. Now we'll go back over to our pier, and I want there to be a little beach over here. So we're going to again apply our gradated wash. Start with your dark Payne's Gray mixture. Fill in a little bit of that area, and then instead of going back into your paint, go back into your water. Touch the edge here, and the paint will start to bleed into that water, and it'll grade. Which is the perfect timing for our little shadows in the water. And you don't want these to be perfect, so you want to make kind of like squiggly lines. You can touch on the harbor poles or the pier poles. Just touch those. There. And we want people swimming, playing on the beach. So we're just gonna do little dots, essentially, which will represent our people playing in the water. Here I feel like I have too much, so I'm going to pick some of that up. Starting to settle on this corner. I don't want that. It's better. Now I do want some birds, so I'll go back into my mixture, add a little bit more Payne's Gray to your diluted Payne's Gray that we used for the first mountain here. You can practice on your scrap piece of paper, just doing little lines, little V movements, dots, because your birds are going to be so far away you're not going to actually be able to see a bird. And I want the birds to be flying around my pier. So there's a lot of fish and people, and there tends to be a lot of birds that are always flying around there. vary your paint value. I'm gonna have a bird sitting here. When you go back into it, you want it to be light and dark. That way the birds will appear to be closer and farther away. And I'm gonna have a few flying off this way. Here we go. Pick up that. Now, to make our water look more realistic, like the ocean, where it has those ripples and movement, we will come into our diluted Payne's Gray, because we want to start off light because it is lighter up here, and then we are going to get darker as we go down our paper. And you want to make little horizontal lines. Make sure that they are horizontal because the water is gonna be, it will look realistic if you make sure that it is all horizontal. If you start getting angles, it's not going to look real. I'm just using my rigger brush and just randomly placing Now I'm going to make all of them light for now, all the way down, and then I will darken them after they've dried. Just barely touch your brush to the paper. Have some closer, some further away. Remember to have fun with this. This is to be fun. Darker color now. It's good to be drinking all of the hot and sweet color in my love, love, love. Up in the painted cup, I pour my love from color in my love, love, love. It's good to be drinking all of the hot and sweet. Darken up some spots as you've gone along, and most importantly, when you are finished with this, don't forget to sign your painting at the bottom. Make sure you vary your lines, large, small, long and short, which will give it the illusion of depth. And there is your painting done in 3 easy washes. I actually decided I want a few more little mountains behind this pier. You can add if you want. I hope this video helped you understand how to use these washes. Question of the day: what techniques did you use today? And did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you can see when I post a new video for our next lesson. Don't miss out.